New at noon today, an Oklahoma woman is charged with crimes related to the alleged sexual abuse, of a minor in northeast Wisconsin. According to the criminal complaint, 24-year-old Randy Cook began communicating with that child in early November, and between then and mid-December, Cook allegedly convinced that child to send sexually explicit images to her online. Cook allegedly traveled to the Eastern District of Wisconsin on more than one occasion, sexually abused that minor at a hotel and a short-term rental property. If convicted of these crimes, she faces up to life in prison.